Welcome, future doctors, to another episode of the Future Minority Doctor podcast with Dr. Sulma
and Marina, where we bring you conversations to empower and inspire you to contribute to your community and the world by becoming a doctor. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Future Minority Doctor podcast. Today, I'm so delighted to welcome a guest, Ruben Ramirez. He was recently accepted to medical school, to his top choice medical school, in fact, and he just finished going through our application coaching program for Future Minority Doctor. So he will be able to shed some light on what that program's like and how it helped him through the whole process of applying to medical school. But anyway, despite being on our program, he is amazing. He has so many rich and wonderful and inspiring life experiences that he is going to share with us today. Ruben grew up in Mexico. He'll tell you a little bit more about that. Immigrated to the United States as a teenager, made his way through finishing high school here to community college, to UC Berkley for his undergraduate degree. And then also, amazingly, has a master's in public health and is finishing up his master's in business administration, or MBA. So he's just an impressive person all around. But without further ado, welcome, Ruben.
Thank you, Dr. Marina. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, to be part of Future Minority Doctor. And as you said, yes, I just completed the program and it was an amazing application cycle for me.
Excellent. I'm so glad. I'm so happy for how it turned out. So yeah, let's backtrack a little bit. Just tell us where you're from and what was your upbringing like?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I was born in Guanajuato, Mexico. It was a small town, rural town in the municipality of Acámbaro. My town is actually called Santiaguillo. The main economic activity there is farming. So my family and I, we were farmers there, very common in that region. But at an early age, my parents, they truly emphasize education as a way to have a better future for us. Even though they were only able to finish or complete elementary school, sixth grade, they always wanted us, my siblings and I, and actually I'm the oldest of six children, so they always emphasized that we needed to do our best in school. It wasn't easy. As I said, we were farmers. We had cattle and different animals that we needed to take care before going to school and then after school. So we had to work and help my parents as much as we could when we were at school, in elementary school, then middle school, then high school. And in high school, there was no high school in our town, so we had to travel an hour away, waking up at 5 in the morning to get to the bus, and then it was an hour of travel get to high school and middle school. Actually, since middle school, we had to do that, and it wasn't easy. I mean, but every single step of the way was worth it.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you end up in California after having grown up on a farm in a rural part of Mexico? What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So I remember I was in third grade of high school, which here was 12th grade. And everyone in my school, back in Mexico, everyone was applying to the different universities. And a year before that year, we were able to get our legal permanent resident status. So I had this idea of, oh, what if I go to the United States and do my university? Because I thought it was the same as in Mexico, but it's completely different. I thought that it was just get to medical school, finish medical school, and then you go and do whatever you need to do to become a doctor, right? But no, it wasn't like that. And I didn't know at that time. I didn't know. So I told my parents, hey, so I have this idea. What if I go to the States, complete my university, and then come back.
Mhm.
And as I said, they prioritize education. They knew that if that was what I really wanted to do, then they would support me. So we came to the States just to see how it was like and the registration process and all of that. We thought it was very similar to Mexico, but it was not. So we arrived to Yuma, Arizona. My mom, she has some relatives there. So we went to the community college there thinking that it was the same process. No, it was not the same process. They told us that I needed to complete high school here. I needed to take ESL classes here. And because I was not a resident of the state of Arizona, I had to pay out of state tuition. So it was even more expensive than in Mexico. And despite all those challenges, my parents say, okay, if that's what you want, we'll do whatever we need to do to support you. So I immigrated by myself, stayed with my relatives. My parents, they stayed behind in Mexico. They later immigrated, but it was for different reasons. But when I came here, I was taking ESL classes in community college in the morning and then attending and completing high school in the afternoons. I remember we tried to get enrolled in a regular high school, but they said, no, you're too old for this type of high school. You need to go to this special high school. It was like a remediation school. So I was like, why are they sending me? I'm not like a troublemaker or something.
Uh-huh.
But I'm glad that they did, because in that school, everyone, all the professors, all the teachers were very supportive. And I remember when I told them, hey, and so I came to the States to become a doctor, they were like shocked, because not a lot of the students in the school had such aspirations, right? They
Mhm.
just needed, or they just wanted to finish high school, and that's it. And then
Yeah.
just you work. But I'm glad that it turned out to be really good. I really had such a great experiences in that high school.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I mean, that's admirable because you didn't just come to go to college, you had to learn English, right? So you had to
Yes.
learn English, finish your high school diploma here so that you could then transfer to community college. What was your experience like after that? So after you finished high school, made your way to community college, and then eventually to UC Berkeley. Tell us about that part of your journey.
So after a year and a half living in Arizona, my parents immigrated to Salinas here in California. I moved with them. So I attended Harnell College for 3 years, and I was working 20 plus hours per week. I had my schedule to just go to school, finish classes, and then go to work afterwards. And then if you have time, you'll do your homework and all of that. And in community college, that worked. So I was fortunate to being able to work, to support myself, to support my family, and do well in school. But later, when I transferred to UC Berkeley, that was a different story. I thought it
Yeah.
would the same strategies or the same studies strategies and techniques that I applied in community college. I thought that those were going to work in at Berkeley, but no, they didn't work. And my first
Hmm.
year at UC Berkeley was terrible. Not only the transition to adjusting to the material that I was learning, the environment, being away from home, and then knowing that I needed to work to support my family and not being able to work as much to support my family. So it was rough the first year. But
Hmm.
then after the first year, I learned to reach out and find resources. There at Berkeley, I met wonderful classmates who later became my friends, and I was able to join BSP, which is a biology scholars program there at Berkeley, specifically for those interested in STEM careers, in medicine, nursing. And they did support me a lot with tutoring sessions, study strategies. So after that support in my senior year, I did improve my grades.
Yeah, I think that experience is experienced by so many of us. I know I went through that, going from being a big fish in a small pond to suddenly being a very small fish in a very big pond at an institution like, UC Berkeley. It's very competitive. And so it's not just the material that you're learning, it's also the caliber of students and the level of competition that you suddenly have to go up against. And that can be a little bit of a shock to many students. And for lots of students, just the transition to college, wherever you go to college, can be difficult. And I appreciate that you mentioned how you had to adjust, because the strategies that were working for you in community college suddenly were not working. And so many students experience that. But you
Yes.
were able to figure it out, right? That's the end of the story, is that you figured it out, you made it work, you improved yourself, your study skills, your grades enough to get to where you are today, right?
Yeah, yes, definitely. And I think that's something that it needs to be emphasized. If you see that something is not working, and if you try to do different strategies, like in this case to study, and if after making such changes, if still doesn't work for you, then I feel like you have to be humble with yourself and seek out resources or ask for
Mhm.
help, because it's a long journey regardless of your career options or what you want to do in life professionally. But I've learned through my journey that it's key to find resources and find those people who will support you in your
Mhm.
journey.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have a whole episode on asking for help, because that is such a common theme among underrepresented minority students and students who just come from more humble circumstances, that we're used to the attitude that our parents had of, like, you just work hard and you figure it out. But we're not really used to asking for help coming from more humble circumstances. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Okay. So once you finished UC Berkeley, you went on to do a master's in public health, an MPH, and then eventually an MBA. So tell me about what factored into that decision, what motivated you, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah. So after graduating from Berkeley, based on those experiences that we discussed, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do medical school anymore. I felt like even though I improved my grades, maybe I was not ready, or maybe medical school was not for me. I was lucky to have the opportunity to do an internship in public health with my county's Department of Public Health. I At that time I didn't know anything about public health. I knew some of my friends were public health majors, but honestly I didn't have any interest in public health at that time. But after Berkeley I needed to find a job, right? So
Uh-huh.
I was like looking for jobs and applying for internships, and I got the opportunity to do that internship. So there at the Department of Public Health here in my county, I participated in two different projects. One in regards to addiction, more related to smoking cessation and how to do promotional materials to prevent teenagers from even trying to smoke, right? That was one of the
Mhm.
projects. The other project that I felt more passionate about was to create promotional materials and educational sessions regarding a county program that provided free primary care services for undocumented community residents here in the county. That program at that time was called the pilot program, which later became the Esperanza Care program. So for that program, in addition to creating those educational materials, we did some community gatherings in which we provided information about the program. We did enrollment of community members to the program, and talking to many of these community members, they were very happy that there was a program like this because they didn't have medical insurance. Some of them had chronic conditions, but they were unable to see a doctor due to their not having medical insurance and also not having the resources to pay a medical appointment. So I was interested in that. And then it came to my realization of, okay, so there are different other things or other areas of study that you can do to help people, that it's medical related, but it's not medicine. So after that experience, I was like, well, maybe if medical school is not for me, maybe I can do public health, because I was very interested in seeing how the application of public health affected communities, not only one individual at a time, but communities, many people at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So after that experience, I applied to a master's in public health through the University of Arizona. And there it was just an explosion of knowledge, knowing about social determinants of health, knowing about different public health policy, public health administration, healthcare administration, and a little bit about the business side of healthcare, which after finishing the program and having the opportunity to work as a medical assistant, and during my master's of public health, I was volunteering and doing public health work, but also it came back my desire to do medicine. So that's why I did work as a medical assistant. And it was
Mm-hmm.
funny because I remember my siblings, they were joking about me because they said that, oh, so now here we have a medical assistant with a master's in public health who gets
Uh-huh.
minimum wage. but
Exactly. Yeah.
but I was doing it for the experience, right? And working
Uh-huh.
as a medical assistant, had the opportunity to work in a private practice in which the owner of the clinic introduced me to the business side of healthcare, the importance of regulations, making and fulfilling compliances for the state, the local authorities, and all of that. And then the more financial aspect, because I remember that she said, even though we would like to have healthcare or access to care at the lower rate or be free of charge or have it as a right for every
Mm-hmm.
human being, the sad reality is that it's not the case at this moment. So we have to learn how to best utilize the resources that we have to create access to care, and not only create access to care, but to provide high quality healthcare services. So from that experience, I was like, oh, now the business side of healthcare seems interesting too. And before going to medical school, I think I should do an MBA, right, with an
Mm-hmm.
emphasis in healthcare administration. So that's why I decided to do my MBA, and it was also the same as my MPH. I learned a lot of things from the business aspect of healthcare, that even though to many of us maybe we don't like that a lot of people don't have health insurance because they cannot afford it, or maybe because the government doesn't provide universal healthcare to everyone. But I mean, we have to learn how to best utilize the resources that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love how your trajectory played out from finishing UC Berkeley and feeling all those feelings of self doubt and maybe medicine is not for me, to then entering public health a little bit by accident, having that desire to go into medicine be rekindled, and then making the connection between medicine and the business of healthcare, which I mean, it's so funny because I think people who go into medicine, they don't do it usually primarily for the money. We do it because we have a big heart. We want to help people. But the reality is that money is always behind the scenes. You cannot have a healthcare system without money. So just because we as doctors are sometimes protected from seeing the money side of medicine doesn't mean it's not there. But if we stay blind to all of those issues with the money side of medicine, we lose control over our profession. And so I think it is really important for more doctors to understand the business side of things. And I'm excited that you are among the ranks of physicians who will be doing that. So congratulations on almost finishing your MBA. When do you finish that up?
Actually, I finished it last week.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So I had my last two finals last week, and the ceremony will be next week.
All
So we'll
right.
be flying to Tucson for
Mm-hmm.
the graduation ceremony.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
You are going to have so many letters behind your name, Ruben.
I
You're going to
know.
be
Yeah, that's what my wife says.
MD, MPH, MBA. That's pretty fantastic. All right. Okay, so let's then talk about what was the application cycle for you when you were starting out looking at your AMCAS application and all of the requirements for applying to medical school and that very confusing timeline. What was going through your mind? How did you prepare yourself to apply to medical school?
Yes. So in the beginning, it was very overwhelming. It was overwhelming to say the least. I'm currently working full time, and last year I was working full time, and I didn't have a lot of free time because I was also doing my MBA. When the date of the application opened, I didn't have my personal statement. I didn't have the activity descriptions. I did have my MCAT score, which was not the best, and I did have a list with the dates of all the activities that I've done after Berkeley. And after May and then after June, I was like, yes, I'm gonna start working on a personal statement and I'm gonna start working on the activity description. And I did start just a little bit, but it was too much. I couldn't keep up with the working full time, more than 40 hours per week, and then doing or completing my assignments for the MBA, studying for exams for the MBA. It was too much. And I came to a point where I was almost giving up from applying the last year in 2023. But I don't know. I think this was something from God that I was almost saying, no, I'm not going to apply to medical school this year. And I was scrolling through Instagram, wasting
Uh-huh.
my limited time that I had. And then I saw one of the reels from Future Minority Doctor, and it was an invitation that you, Dr. Marina, were making to everyone there on Instagram, saying, hey, if you're applying to medical school this year, we still have a few spots available to our program. Make sure to apply. And then I was like, this might be like a sign or something, like saying from
Uh-huh.
God, hey, this is your last chance. Are you gonna take it or not?
Uh-huh.
And I visited the website. I visited the link to apply to Future Minority Doctor and completed all the questions, the prompts that were listed there. And after 2 days, 2 to 3 days, I received an email from you saying, hey, welcome. Thank you for applying to Future Minority Doctor program. And we are excited to welcome you to the program. I was like, what? It was
Uh-huh.
it was late. Wasn't that late, but I think it was like around July first, early mid July. So having that, I was like, this is the opportunity for me to do my best. Even if I don't have the time, I'll find the time to get on it, work on my personal statement, and work on my activity descriptions, and continue studying for the MCAT, because at that time I was thinking on retaking the MCAT in August. And
Uh-huh.
so I feel I was hopeful but overwhelmed. But after talking to you, after attending the sessions of the program, I felt like I was supported. I felt like this was my opportunity to apply to medical school.
Yeah. That. Well, I'm so glad you did, and I'm glad it worked out. Last year, we just happened to have some people that didn't follow through, and so we had some openings, in the summer, which is a little later. But I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I think whatever it was happened for a reason, and so you
Yes,
found us, and
definitely.
it was such a pleasure to help. How did you, for people who might be considering this program or just learning about it, how did it help support you through the process of applying to medical school, and how did you feel about how it improved your chances of success in the end?
Yes. So even though I started the program a few months later than my peers, I received the support to refine and take my personal statement to a different level. I'm not a good writer. I mean, English is my second language. I can explain or describe my life perfectly in Spanish, I feel.
Uh-huh.
But in English, it takes me more time and more work to do that. So having the support from you, Dr. Marina, Dr. Solma, and Future Minority Doctor, I was able to get my personal statement to the level that it needed to be ready for the application.
Uh-huh.
And then for my descriptions, I think it was very similar. I'm not a good writer. So all that support in writing my personal statement, the descriptions, and organizing the whole application, it was very, very helpful.
Do you think it ultimately made a difference for you? We also, of course, as part of the coaching program, we do group practice interviews. So were those helpful? What else was helpful? And then do you feel like it made a difference in the end for you?
Yes. So yes, definitely the interviews, the mock interviews, one on one, and the group sessions, getting the feedback from other applicants, from the peers, from the program. That definitely made a huge difference. I'm not the best public speaker for many reasons, but I felt very comfortable sharing my story and answering questions within the group and during our mock interviews and also during the one-on-one sessions. I remember at first when we had our first mock interview with the group, I think I was the third one or the fourth to answer the question or the prompt. And when I saw that my peers, the first two peers, were answering their questions, I noticed that I felt like they were very calm and they
Uh-huh.
answered the question to the best. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm not ready. They
Uh-huh.
they seem very secure about their answers. They know what they're talking about. They know what to say, and I didn't feel ready. But when it was my turn and I provided what I had to say, I didn't know how to structure my responses. But after receiving the feedback from my peers and the feedback from you and Dr. Sulma, it makes sense. I had to do a lot of practice on my own, but I had a structure for my responses, which was very helpful. At first, I was completely lost. I didn't know how to answer the questions, what structure to follow or outline to follow for each of the responses. But after getting the feedback and after practicing as a group, one on one or on my own, I did improve. And I think it was very helpful because at the end of the day, I was accepted to medical school. I was
Uh-huh.
lucky to receive five interview
Yeah.
invites
Uh-huh.
during the cycle, three from DO schools and two from MD programs here in California. So at the end of the day, I'm super happy because I'm accepted. I was accepted to my top choice medical school. And at the beginning, if you would have told me that I was going to get accepted to my top choice like a year ago before finding
Uh-huh.
future minority doctor,
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't believe it. I would be, no way. How are you going
Uh-huh.
to get accepted if you don't even have your personal statement ready?
Uh-huh.
But so I'm super happy because of that.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, speaking of that, so where have you decided to go, if you don't mind sharing? And what are you looking forward to about medical school?
Yeah. Okay. So my top choice medical school was UC Davis School of Medicine. And that was my dream school since I knew that it existed because of their mission. Their focus on primary care. And based on my experiences going back to Mexico and the limited access to care that we had back in Mexico, and then seeing the same circumstances happening here in the US within my family and my community here in California, it was a dream for me to go there. So going back a little bit, during the secondary applications, they ask you, hey, so we have these pathway programs, and in case you want to apply, there are additional essays that you need to complete and tell us why you want to get into these programs. So two of those programs was the Rural Prime program with an emphasis in rural communities. And also the other program that I applied to is the accelerated program with emphasis in primary care. That's a 3-year MD program that UC Davis offers in collaboration with Kaiser Permanente in Sacramento. So because I knew that I wanted to do primary care, and I knew that my emphasis based on my experiences is working with underserved communities, rural communities. So that's why I applied to those two programs. After getting accepted to UC Davis, each of the programs sent me an interview invite. I attended and completed the one for the HPC program, and talking to the faculty, talking to one of the current students, I really liked the vibes. They were very
Uh-huh.
supportive, and I enjoyed that interview. I was nervous at first, but I felt very comfortable during their interview. We were having just a conversation. They were asking me questions, and I felt comfortable sharing my story, sharing my experiences, and sharing the reason why I wanted to do primary care. That was on Thursday, and then on the following week, on Monday, they sent me the email, hey, congratulations, you've been accepted to the
Uh-huh.
HPC program. I
Wow.
couldn't believe it. I was like, what? So my dream was to go to UC Davis School of Medicine and to do this program, a 3-year program with emphasis in primary care. So I was like flying of
Uh-huh.
happiness. As we say in Spanish, sentía que volaba pedacitos, pero volaba. But
Uh-huh.
so I felt like super happy, full of
Mhm.
happiness. And then that day, I also had the interview for the other program, the Rural Prime program. But I didn't do that interview. I sent them an email saying, "Hey, thank you for the opportunity, but HBC program is my top choice, and I
Mhm.
declined that interview for the Rural program."
Mhm. Yeah.
And now, because it's an accelerated program, we'll be starting classes 6 weeks earlier than the
Mhm.
traditional MD program. So we'll be starting classes in June, in a month,
Uh-huh. Wow.
basically.
In a month. Oh my gosh, you're going to be in medical school in a month. Can you believe it?
I mean, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, wow, I never thought this wouldn't be possible. But I'm
Mhm.
super excited. I'm super happy. My wife, she's super happy. I know my son, he's also super happy. He's a baby, 15 months old.
Uh-huh.
But we're
Yeah.
all super happy to moving to
Mhm.
Sacramento and finally have this opportunity of attending medical school, learning as much as I can about medicine so that I can come back to my community and serve as a family physician. As
Mhm.
of today, that's my main interest to become a family doctor.
Mhm. Wonderful. Wonderful. And some sort of business person, of course, that helps
Yes,
your clinic
definitely.
to be successful, right? Excellent. Well, I'm
Yeah.
so happy for you, Ruben, and you were such a wonderful participant in our program. Even though you joined late, you scheduled all the sessions, you showed up, dedicated, on time, ready to work. And you brought so many life experiences and so much dedication, so much perseverance with you that it was such a pleasure to like see you through this process and do our little part. I mean, you did 99% of the work. We just helped you tell your story through your application and helped you to feel a little more comfortable during the interviews. But yeah, we're so happy about the outcome for you. And I mean, both Dr. Zulman, I feel like you're just going to be such a fantastic physician and help so many people that need your understanding and your compassion and your life experiences to be their partner in health. So congratulations again. I know you're going to love medical school. I mean, medical school is challenging. They say it's like drinking from a fire hose, and for pretty much it's that for everyone, but you're going to do just fine. You've overcome so many challenges in the past already. You have shown how capable and hardworking you are. So I have no doubt you're going to do just fine in medical school and beyond.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Marina, and thank you so much to Dr. Solma as well, both of you, and Dr. Sandra as well. All of you have helped me a lot, and I have no way of how to pay it back to you, but I'm ready to support the program in whatever way I can, and to support other students who will be in the program. As you said, it was such a successful application cycle for me. And yes, we're excited to start this new chapter in my life with my wife and my son. And yeah, thank you so much for everything, Dr. Marina.
You're so welcome. You're so very welcome. Yeah. And to any of our listeners who don't know about our application coaching program, you can check out our website, futureminoritydoctor.com, and learn more information under the application coaching program tab. Our application opens typically in February, and our applications are usually due by the end of March. So if you are considering applying to medical school soon, then please look into it. We want to help as many underrepresented minority students be successful in the process of applying to medical school so they can become physicians and help their communities and increase representation and health equity throughout the country. So check it out if you haven't already. And Ruben, thank you so much for being part of this episode. And everyone, thanks for listening. Until next time.
Thank you.